we're looking at Packet Tracer today. We looked at how it's set up and stuff the other day. But what we really want to look at today is really not Packet Tracer, but we're going to use Packet Tracer to do it. But let's look at the commands. And we got next Thursday also. Because next Tuesday, well, we got this Thursday and next Thursday. Today's Tuesday, isn't it? I don't know what day of the week it is anymore. So we've got 2 more classes working on this, because if I remember right, this assignment's not due till the 6th, isn't it? I believe that's what I just saw out there a few minutes ago when I was working on it. Anybody finding the calendar yet?
Man, those calendars can get confusing with all those classes.
Okay, what y'all can do is you can X out stuff so that you only see the calendar for the class you're looking at. Okay? So if I go to calendar here, so I always go to the calendar and we'll find this. Yeah, chapter 2 is due 30th. So it's due Monday. Okay, so all we got is today and Thursday. Something in some classes not due till 6. This was the one I was just looking at the exercise on, so I'm not sure what in the world I was. Must have looked at something else.
Wait, so that small little class Packet Tracer, that's due Monday, or?
That was due yesterday.
Okay, that's why I thought.
Okay, but if you don't have it done, still get it done. Okay.
I'll have to ask you something.
Because I'm not as particular on, but it's benefiting you to do what you're doing, because that's giving you more knowledge on Packet Tracer, and particularly for the online class, as opposed to because they're not getting quite as much benefit on this. And then I've got 1 or 2 students in there telling me they're having problems trying to listen to the lecture, that said they want to listen to the lecture, but they said they're getting all kinds of ads in it and that it breaks up and stuff. It works fine for me when I've tried it at 3 different locations now. It throws an ad at the beginning and then that's it. That when it starts, that it proceeds to play right on, and they said they're having a problem. So I've got another thing I'm going to post on that. But, so, we've got class today and Thursday, and we'll go over these commands both days, and you'll see how to put in the commands and stuff. And then, but next Tuesday, the 31st, we don't have class. Okay? Because I will be in the award ceremony then to find out how I did. I get a certificate at least. And I remember, whenever I remember to bring my nails to school, I will hang a couple of things on my wall here. Those of you that have been through my office in the other campus know I've got a bunch of things on the wall there, but I've got about 3 things I was going to hang here. I remember to bring the nails in for it. And when I get that one, I will hang that one here, because I was nominated 2 years ago and got a certificate 2 years ago, which is hanging in the other office. So then I can just hang both certificates.
Did they finally give you an office here? Did they finally give you an office here?
All right, now, with that question, that leads to one other thing. Check your spam/junk folder, whatever they call it out there. What are they calling it, spam or junk? Spam. Was junk. Mine, I think email still calls it junk. Check it regularly. If you write me and you don't get a response back within hours, except for on the weekend, give me a little bit longer on it. But if you don't get a response back pretty soon, look in that folder and see if it's gone to that folder. For some reason, some of my emails are going to it. Evan ran into that, we just discovered this morning. He was asking me about what he'd written me this weekend, and I said, well, I wrote you back an hour or two later, and he hadn't seen it. And it was sitting in the spam folder. Okay? So watch on that. I don't know how I've had students tell me that for last semester, and I think the semester before, that sometimes my stuff was going in spam/junk. But then some stuff doesn't go there, as he had noticed also. He got other emails from me that went to the inbox, but then something went to there. So do watch that one on that, okay? You would think it wouldn't, since it's supposed to be the school email and it's coming from a school address.
That's in all of yours in the junk folder.
Huh?
It's in all of yours in the junk folder.
So you're getting all of it in the junk folder. Okay. So there's not a consistency there either, if y'all notice. Okay. So apparently on his is a consistency that I go to junk, but some of the other students are reporting I go to normal. And then Evan had some of me in junk and some of me in normal. So there's no even bit on that one. Because I've known it up here happens with my Dreamsburg Imagine message that goes out. Because I'll tell students when they write and ask me, and I'll tell them check the junk folder. Of course, the problem is they don't see my message coming back sometimes, but usually it seems to they do, but that one's mass sent out to 1,000 people, and that message going to junk does have some semblance of reason on it. Well, it really doesn't go to 1,000 because school won't let me, because the Microsoft email system won't let me send it out to 1,000. And so I only send it to about 300 on each group, but it picks up that as junk sometimes. So just be aware of those, but next Tuesday, just remember, no class that day, okay? And then the following week on the 9th, we won't have class either. Well, I'm thinking of that right now, because I will be in Macon leading the networking portion of the statewide meeting and attending the statewide meeting. All right, any questions on all of that? Okay, now let's go to Packet Tracer and let's look at how you're going to put your commands in. And I'm just going to stick a router up here for us to work with. Well, y'all were actually using a switch in this first assignment, aren't you? So I will stick a switch up there instead, although it works the same. The other one is what I was just working on this morning. I fixed last week because they changed that Packet Tracer assignment. It's the same number as it was in the previous version of the curriculum, but they changed some settings. I'm not sure what has happened since, but the addresses did not match to my notes. And last week I changed to their address to show you the example of how to put in VLAN 1's IP address. And I changed it to the one in the assignment. Well, then I had somebody write me yesterday and was going, should they be using my numbers or should they use the number in the assignment? If you're in question on that, you need to use the number in the assignment because it's going to grade you on their number, okay? And I just changed it last week to the number they had. And I know I changed it to the number it was there, but when I looked at the assignment, it's a different number. So I'm pretty sure I changed it to that number, and so I'm not sure what happened, if they changed it in Packet Tracer or what, or somehow Blackboard goofed me up or whatever, but I did change it last week and changed the passwords too, because the passwords had changed, but the passwords I've got out there now did match to the assignment. So I have changed it again to match what they've got in the assignment. But if it does go crazy again, when you go to do it, use the actual number they show you to use. Does everybody follow on that? Which at the moment is 10.10.10.100 for VLAN 1 on switch A, which they changed the name of that too, apparently, on me from class 1 to ASW1. So I've got that back matching again. I just fixed that a little bit ago and sent y'all a note on that. And who knows what happens now on it. So let's look at how to go in and set these settings. On future assignments, you're going to usually be able to double click the switch or the router and go straight into it. Now, on the real equipment, like I mentioned in here, that can't do that on the real equipment. You've got to set up a console cable, or you've got to go through the network to get into the router or switch, okay, to be able to do that. But on Packet Tracer, you can actually go straight into the switch or the router. Now, on the first assignment, and there could be other assignments, they could do it to you again, but I don't really remember any right off. You're going to have to set up the console cable and go through the PC to get into it, and go to the terminal, and that will jump you into the switch or the router at that point. It gives you exactly the same thing when you get to that point as if you had gone straight into it. Okay? Other one is when we did that the other day. I went by the other campus yesterday. That we used the blue cable here. Connect the PC to the switch still there. Okay? I made the comment that it's really a console cable, just the flat part of it. And then the end of it, it actually does a conversion from RJ45 was the pair cable to the serial plug. Okay? All made into one thing, which is the way they're doing now. There is a transceiver box that we have, which is what we used to do, which plugs into the serial port on your PC. And then the RJ45, the console cable, is plugged in here, which then has the other end that goes into the switch or the router. Does everybody follow on that? And so this is switching from serial to the RJ45. And then the cable going from there to the other one's got to be a console rollover cable that reverses the beams going across. Do we follow how that worked and what that was doing? And that's all that little box does for you. And then it shows us about the lines, which ones carry what information, if it's active or not. And then we actually turn on some tests with the switches that's on here, and then it tells us what the LEDs tell us to. That was, but now they're building it all into one cable for it. It makes it easier. All right, questions on that? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put a PC in here, and we'll use a console cable just so y'all can see on that. So I'll add a PC. We'll just put a generic PC up here. We'll put a console cable between the two. Plug it into the PC, into the RS-232. And I'll plug it into the console port. I'll go into the PC, go to desktop, go to terminal, click OK, And at that point, I am in there. I don't know if I can, well, yeah. If I can enlarge this easily right here or not.
I think it's under options, preferences on packet tracer, not there, and then you say font, and then it's got, yeah, and then click on font up there, and I think
Oh,
somewhere it says
okay.
command line
There, I
interface
can-
font.
Do we have packet tracer on computers?
Hmm?
Do we have packet tracer on computers?
On these, yes.
But you got a specific one for the command line interface. Very first one at the top, right there.
Oh, okay. Knows what I was changing there, so. And oh, there it is. I'm gonna say there should be an apply button here somewhere. Close that.
I'm not sure you're applied to.
I thought I applied.
Is that bigger?
All right, which one was it you said? Options?
It's the options, preferences, and then font. Yeah, I guess it did. Doesn't
Yeah,
look any bigger.
it's there. 16 on.
Oh, you know what? I bet that's only if you go straight into the switch. Yeah, that's only if you go straight into the switch.
Okay. But y'all see how, yeah, that's it. All right, but y'all see how when you're doing that assignment, you're gonna get to the same place, okay? And we'll just do it straight through the switch, but it doesn't make any difference on this because we're the same place either way at this point, okay? So you've got identically the same thing showing here as we had showing in the smaller print when I went through terminal from the PC using the console cable. Does everybody follow that part?
Which switch did you use?
I'm using that first one, the 2960 or whatever. It really doesn't make any difference because stuff we're doing applies on all of the switches and routers. I could have grabbed a router too because all of the commands we're doing right here are identically the same. Okay? Because we're doing basic stuff. So, as long as it's a Cisco router or switch, it's going to work the same for us. This would look a little different depending on which router or switch, because it tells us here about what our interfaces are. It tells us which version of the iOS we're using, that we're using 12.2, which means they haven't fully updated this, because I believe we're on 15 is what you can have out there on the switches now. And actually on our switches and routers, they have a little older on them, but I can actually update them if we go to using them because we've got a maintenance contract with Cisco that they give us free as an academy, and then I can pull down the current versions of iOS at any point. Just notice that is back to 2005. So, on Packet Tracer, it's whichever version they've got there, and I'm not sure on 2960 how much more we can update it because it is an older switch on it. So, if I hit enter, I'm now back to my prompt there. Okay? At this point that I'm in user exec mode, okay? I'm on basic. All I can do is look at stuff, okay? Non-password protected right now. It can be password protected on this too, okay? So at this point, there's really not much I can do in here at that level, other than look. So I want to get into use enable to get to privileged exec mode. So I'm going to do ENA, and the prompt changes to the number sign. Now, at this point, we're ready to start doing our configuration, which is what they're teaching you in the chapter. We looked at help the other day, that you've got various levels of help available in here, on both levels. So it's not just something on the higher level, it's on the lower level, and when we get to higher levels. We are going to configure the switch in this case. When you configure it, you're programming it. Okay? So everybody follow on that? So it's going to be configure it. You're going to hear people talk about programming the router or the switch. They're doing the same thing. It's just what term you're using for it. Because you're really not real programming it, but you're just setting configuration settings for it that work into the existing program. But a lot of people will say you're programming the switch or the router. So if you hear that you're not going, wait a minute, is there something else that you can do that Dr. Watt's not telling me about? So I am then want to get into configuration mode, because again, I'm still just in a basic mode, in privileged mode here, and I can look at a lot of things, but if I go into configuration, I can change stuff. So I can do config T, which actually is short for configure terminal. Okay? And when I hit enter on that, prompt changes again and tells us we're in configuration, because it now says config there. So now it's ready for us to put commands in. Now, it put in basic things when we started, okay? It's got some basic things out there. So right now the switch is named switch. Just to maybe work this a little bit better, I'm going to change how it looks. So that y'all can see it a little bit easier. Because when it was down here, for some of you trying to see through, it was getting a little tricky, I think. Now that we got it higher up in the air, y'all can see it. Okay? So it says config, so we're in configuration mode. We can make changes at this point. Things that they're going to teach you in this chapter to change. I'm going to tell you about various shortcuts and hotkeys you can use. You can use those if you want. They go back to Unix again on you, so if you did know shortcuts in Unix, you got an advantage right there, okay? Lots of control keys to just do things that you can actually use your arrows and backspace key to do, so keep in mind that this stuff comes from a lot of these commands you're sitting here. You really don't need now because you've got full function keyboards. They're dating back to the 70s when people were sitting there on computers with limited function keyboards that basically had letters and numbers. Okay? When I took my first computer class, which actually was a programming class, in high school, and we used teletype machines to connect to the computer that was 15 miles down the road or somewhere around there. Teletype machine had a very limited keyboard for us. It just had letters and a few special characters, and the numbers were on top of the letters, just like you do have on some keyboards still that you'll find. It didn't have separate numeric pad. I took typing the same year. We were in my senior year in high school, and it went from typing 1 hour to sitting on that keyboard the next hour, and it's driven my right hand crazy ever since, because in typing I had the numbers across the top like we're used to. On that teletype machine, the numbers were purely in a numeric keypad built onto the letters on the right side. And so when I went to do a number in one class it was one way, and in the other class it was another way. So I still don't have that one quite right yet. And so they built off of that, so you didn't have your backspace key and some other stuff on there, or your arrow keypad was not on those machines, so they've got control sequences to do all those little arrows, where the arrows will work for you anyway. So you really don't have to know a lot of that stuff on there. The only one that I could tell you right off, beyond the backspace and what the front left arrow and right arrow do, is, it's not even on the list right here, is that I'll use the Control Z, which is on the next page, as a brake key that I use to Control Z and the Control C sometimes, but the Z particularly, the Z will take us out of configuration mode and return us to exec mode. It will also take you exit out. That it doesn't tell you that here, that it's saying that Control C will do that. Z will actually get away with doing it most of the time for you also. So Control Z will usually back you back down a level wherever you are. Alright, so first one here, which is the first one they show you, is we can change the name of our device. Because it's named switch right now. If we had a variety of switches up there, it would be nice to know which switch we're actually working on for the prompt to tell us, to remind us which switch we're working with, right? So you can change that, and they're going to have you do that all the time. So to do that, you're going to use the host name command. Now, its host name is the name of the command, but nobody ever uses host name. It's going to be host. It's what you're going to normally see used. Okay? So I'm going to put host, and then we can name it whatever we want to name it. We can use letters, numbers, dashes in there, and I'm not sure what other characters, but letters, numbers, and dashes pretty much gives you a good amount. Length I don't remember on, but you can go longer on it for a little bit. Okay? So we could name this CIST 2451-A for our first switch in here. Okay? And I'm just making something up there. Now, in your assignment, they tell you specifically what to name it, which, like I said, I think is ASW-1 for the first one and ASW-2 for the second one. Assuming that wherever I had class 1 and class 2 coming from doesn't get changed back to or something. So just watch your directions. When I hit enter on that, it has renamed the switch. Prompt changed. That's all it took to do it. If you want to change it again, you can change it again. Okay? Does everybody follow on that? So, you will name your switches and routers. So that's all that you have to do those. The illustrations in the book, they're spelling out the terms in there where we're not spelling it out. Okay? Now, the next one is to secure the access to going into enable mode. Okay? We can do enable and then the password that we want to use. So we can say enable password and a password on it. Or we can encrypt that password by putting enable secret and the password, which is what you want to do. Because if you don't do the encryption on it, if somebody gets the printout that we'll see in a minute, that when you can look at what the whole configuration is, and you actually do want to, on real ones, print that out and put in your files as documentation, so if you have to go back and reconfigure the switch or the router, you've got what all the commands are there. You want the password encrypted on there, so that if somebody that's not supposed to be getting in there comes in and finds that piece of paper, they still can't get into your switch or router and mess with it. if you don't use secret, it's not going to be encrypted. Does everybody follow on that? So now to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to say enable. I'm pretty sure it was just password. Let me try this. So hold on a second on this, because I'm going to show you on. I'm going to put my name as password. Yep, that took. Now I'm going to show you what happened by me using password. The book shows you secret, okay? The password actually works. Now if I come out of here, so I'm going to do a Control Z. Go back down the level, so I'm out of configuration. Now I'm going to do show run. And it's going to show me the configuration, which is what I'm saying you'd print out as your documentation, okay? Look what it's got right there. There's my password, right? So if somebody got the piece of paper that this was the copy printed on, or they managed to get to this point that the machine hadn't been logged off like it should have been, and they looked right here, guess what? They can get back into it, okay? Because the password's right there. Everybody follow on that? It's just the commands we're doing, literally doing this. Because notice there, it's host name and the name we gave it. Spells them out every time here, okay? You put the shorter name, but it picked it up as the long name. And then there's the other things already set for you here. If I do spaces when I'm doing this, it'll give me another page at a time. If I do enter, which to me is reversed on the way it is, but that's the way they did it. If I do enter, it's going to give me one more line at a time. And then you can scroll up and down there over on the right as normal, so we can go back and look at whatever we want to scroll up. Everybody follow on that part? And so notice it's got all kinds of stuff out there. Notice it knows about the VLAN address already, but it's shut down, so it's not working. Okay? But our interfaces are not shut down, so they're all active, and that goes back to John's question last week. Buys a switch, buys one of these switches, can he just plug stuff in it and it work? Yes. Okay? But it's not going to do any security to it. It's not going to have specific addresses. You're not going to get all the full advantages of a switch in the process. Okay? All right, so now I'm going to go back into config T. If you put in a command wrong, and you go, oops, didn't mean to do that command, you can get rid of what you put in there real simply. All you do is do the same command again with the word no in front of it. Everybody follow on that? So we don't want enable password Dwight. One other thing is the up arrow will pull me back the commands that I have previously used on this level, on this session, okay? We didn't log off the whole thing, so it still remembers in config T what was the last thing we did on there. If we had logged off it, then it wouldn't remember, okay? But if we hit, and when we were sitting at the enable prompt right here, I could have used the up arrow and it would have shown the config T to me previous, but it would not have shown this command because this command was not done at the privileged prompt. Does everybody follow on that? So it just shows you things previous on this level. Up arrow and down arrow will scroll you back and forth through there. That can be real handy, and like in this case, it can be real handy, or you made a typo in there or whatever. It's usually when you use this. Just pull up the command again, go to the front of the command using your back arrow, not the backspace key, because you use the backspace key, it's going to delete it all. Type in no, and guess what? I've got exactly the command there I want to remove. I don't have to remember exactly how did I type that wrong command. And I can hit enter. And in this case of this one, it's going, you don't need to be doing that. That I would actually need to go in and just tell it there's no password on it. But normally it would void it out for us. So, should be able to just do enable password. And it didn't like that, but I'm going to do enable secret. And we'll use Dwight again. So we're putting the same password, but we're encrypting it. Is everybody following that? And it says you really shouldn't do that because guess what? We had it exposed out there and now we're using the same password, so they're going, that's not a real good security one. Let's see if it lets me get away with it. All right. I'm going to change it, but then I'm going to change it back because I really want to do the same password on it. I haven't changed the enable password. No enable password should have gotten rid of the other one.
I messed up on that.
Why is it not taking it out?
I still took it away.
If I leave off the password when I do no enable password, it gets rid of the enable password. I just wasn't supposed to put the password on there when I did it. I was killing the password, didn't make any difference what the password was. And that it was going, don't tell me about the password. So now I'll come back to enable secret, put it as that again, and it's happy with that because there was no enable password any longer in there. Does everybody follow what we just did? So now I have put a secret password out there. Let's go back and look at it in the configuration file again and see what it looks like now, just so y'all see the difference. So I'll do my Control Z again. And actually at this point, here's another one for you. There's my prompt, but it threw a message to me to tell me that it's thrown this configuration file out into the running one out there and configured it. If you start typing at this point right here, it's just like I'm typing right here. It knows this was just a message it put there. It doesn't even see that in there when you start typing. It sees purely what you type. Or if you don't like that, because you notice you're not typing at the prompt, but if you want to type at the prompt, all you got to do is hit enter, and you get your prompt going back anyway. A lot of times I will hit enter because I like to be sitting by the prompt, that it looks cleaner to me on it, but it really doesn't make any difference to you. I don't think the book tells you that one either. So now I'm going to use my up arrow, come back to show run again, which actually is show running config, okay, because the file name is actually running-config. I'll hit enter. Notice what I've got for a password now. Still the same password, it's Dwight, but can you get Dwight out of that? Okay, y'all see how it's stored out there now. It is encrypted out there. And I think it's using 256 RSA, if I remember right, to encrypt it. So it's pretty secure encryption. Yeah, because it is RS5, and there's 5. Tell me which encryption technique it's using, because that's what the 5 is there for, is to tell us which encryption technique it's using. Because you can actually set it to a different type encryption if you want. All right, so everybody follow that one? How we've done that. And if I don't want to look through the rest of the configuration file, I can do my Control C and just abort out of there. Y'all got that shortcut on you? So back to config T. Now keep in mind at this point the only thing we have changed is the running configuration. if we shut the switch off at this point, or I log out of it, all my work's going to go out the window. So I have not saved it. I'll come to that in a few minutes later, but just as a reminder to you, we've only affected the running configuration file, not the saved configuration file, which is called startup config. Okay? When we save it, that's that. It's just like when you're sitting in Word, you're sitting there editing a document, you make your changes, although Word now keeps doing little backups for you anyway, but it doesn't change the file on the disk, but it does create its own little backup file as you're going. But until you hit save button, it doesn't save it as your file name out there. Everybody follow on that part? So you will have to remember to save it at some point. Same rules as like when you're working on Word or whatever. Whenever you've done as much work as you want to take a risk of losing, stop at that point and save. If you get hung up on some spot and you're spending a few minutes on it or whatever trying to do something, and you've already done some other stuff and you've been working a little bit on it, I'd suggest make your save and then keep on trying on it so you don't lose that other stuff you've already done. Okay? Because guess what? Power goes out, you lost stuff. It's not doing any auto save in here for you. So if the computer goes down, it goes out the window for you. Same thing on the real routers and switches. There is no auto save occurring in there for you to be able to pull something back from. All right, the next one they show you is, so we said about there, let's come back out of here and see what we've done. So I'm going to back down a level and come out of there and do my Control C. Well, I'm going to do exit. Neither one of them seems to be working at the moment. I'll do my Control C and I'm out of there. And actually I just goofed up because I didn't do what I meant to do.
Are we ready to start?
No, we're okay because it didn't do anything. It just took us back down to the bottom level, which is where I want. So notice my name is still there. If I do enable now, notice what it did. Now if I had shut the device off and restart it, it would have been lost, but I didn't shut it off, so I didn't lose it. It was still holding on there. It asked me for a password to go in enable mode. What was my password? Why? Because we don't remember the password, not get in. But notice what it did when I just typed the password in. You're used to it usually putting dots or asterisks or something up there. When you're working on the Cisco devices, it puts nothing there. So you can't tell what you've typed on it at all. You can't tell how many characters. That if I walked up while Savannah was typing her password in right there and looked over her shoulder, yeah, I could watch her fingers on the keyboard, but if I was just watching on the screen to see how many characters it was, I have no idea. Because nothing showed on the screen.
What will it show if you do the wrong password?
Right, I'll put Sam in, and it just comes back and asks for the password again. Okay? I hadn't been the wrong password long enough to remember to tell you what it was that responded on that right there.
Does it set like the default to lock you out of any tries or anything?
No. Although you can set a setting in there to do that. But that's way advanced. I think that's in course 5 or beyond. I did it, because I know I've done it, and I either did it in CCNP 1 or I did it in CCNA security. And I don't remember which one. But as a general rule, people don't even set that on. So.
Just for like really secure banks? Or...
But you could. Mm-hmm. All right, the next one they show you is, so we've put the that one on it. The easier way for us to have done just what we did was to have done disable and then done enable, and it would take us down the level. I just wasn't thinking on that. They then mention about how to set a password for the line, for the console line. So if somebody plugs in through your console port there, you can password protect that port. So everybody follow on that? That is a line that's coming in. The other ones on there, that where you're plugging in to the other machines plugging into yours and the regular Ethernet ports are going to be interfaces. But where there's a couple of special ones that are lines. That the console is going to be a line, VTY is going to be a line. What VTY is when they come across the internet into it. So that's going to be using a line also. The others are going to be using interfaces. So I'm going to do line, console, and you can actually abbreviate that down to CON, but I'm going to spell it out. For some reason I've always done that. You can actually have more than one console port on a router or switch. Okay? So you have to tell it which console port are we talking about. If you only got one of them on there, it's the first one, and that's the only one. They number from 0, which is what you'll find a lot of the time we'll do stuff numbering from. That 0 is the first one. Interfaces, it actually numbers from 1 for some reason. Or the, to match with the numbers on the outside of it. So I'll do that. Whoops. What did I just do wrong? Oh, I didn't go into config mode. What's wrong here? Now, I can't use the up arrow because it doesn't know about that last command. Y'all follow on that? And the fact we've been off and gotten back on into enable, into the whole thing, we've lost those other ones on there too. So I've got to type the command in again. It would be nice if it would give us that last command, because you will do that a number of times, forget to go into config mode, and start typing configuration commands. So now notice it changed the prompt again, because now I'm in configuration mode for a line. Y'all follow on that? Because I'm configuring that console line. So
Even though we went back and forth between levels, is any of the work that we've already done, has it been lost?
well, we secured it for one thing. I think that's where it lost it out, was it saw it a completely different session then, because we came in a secured session now as opposed to the unsecured session.
Okay, so
If we had have been still on the same security level and didn't have to do security again, I think we would have been okay, like it did do for us a moment ago, before we did put in the password onto it. So sometimes it works for you on that when you've changed levels, and sometimes it doesn't. Sort of like looking for my emails. So now here, we're going to configure that port. By default, it was open. Okay? Now we're going to put into it that we want to require you to log into this using a password. So you're going to put first the password command. Password, and then whatever the password you're going to use. Now on their assignments now, they start having you do some odd passwords, which are really secure passwords. Some of them they're going to go to that they, for years, and they still do occasionally, and they do in the demos and stuff, that they're going to use class and Cisco as default passwords on stuff. Okay? So you'll see them using Cisco or class a lot of times on stuff, but they've gotten on some of your activity, and some of your activities you're going to see the Cisco at pass, and sometimes they're going to throw you a strong password on it. Your first assignment, they throw you strong passwords on there. So I'm going to put password, and then I'm going to put whatever I want to put as password, and I'm going to call it class just so it's easy for us to remember on it. Now, the fact I have put a password on there, it is no longer accessible directly into it, that you have to tell it you can log into this port. So we're going to tell it login. We're not logging in, we're just saying login is allowed onto this port now. And then that's all I have to put for the console port. I've put it where you can log in through it, and it requires a password when you come into it. So now I'll exit out of there. The VTY lines are the lines that's coming in across the network. They're virtual terminal lines is what the VTY stands for. I don't know where the Y comes from, but it's virtual terminal. Somehow they got a Y into it. Okay? You have 16 of those ports. Actually, on most of the switches and routers now, it can have bigger numbers than that, 32 different connections coming in on them. But normally you set up for allowing 16 connections in, because normally you don't have more than that coming in. But if you have a bunch of people logging into it from different ways, you can set up even more ports for it. Okay? That's not the ones of where they're plugged straight in, but where they're coming across the network into there from another device, but not doing as a direct plug. So that one is going to be a line also, line VTY, and you will tell it the beginning number, what's our first port number of them, 0 again, and what the last one is. So we're going to do 15. So that's giving us 16 VTY connections. Does everybody follow? Now you could set up part of them using one password, part of them using another password. And then depending on which one they're coming in on, they got to use the correct password for whichever connection they come in through. It's basically like ports when you're working on your Windows. Okay? It's a similar type thing. So then I'm at the same place. I do the same thing as I did up there on the console line. So password. But for y'all's purposes, through these classes, you're going to always do line VTY 015. Okay? As again, advanced thing to narrow them down some. So I'm going to do password. I'm going to call it class again, just not to keep myself confused. In real world, you'd want a different password on the VTY connections than on the console connection. And then I'm going to do the login. And then I can exit out of there. Spell exit correct. And that's been put in there. And let's go back down to out of config T at this point. So I'll exit. Let's look at our show run again, and then I'm going to save it for you. And so we've still got the same stuff up there at the top. But now down at the bottom, notice the console port is not an encrypted password. But you're not worried about on that one being encrypted. You don't need that one encrypted on it because they've got to be plugged into your machine to get to it. So that one actually doesn't. This one's not encrypted either. And notice it actually does split the VTYs into two groups right there for us by default. And since we said it applied to all of them, it applied to both sets. And those can be broken other ways too. Now, let's save the file. We'll do copy. What file do we want to save? Run, or running config. And then where do we want to save it to? Startup config. Those are fixed, predefined names you got to use. Okay, you can save them as other names, but if you save it as another name, it's not going to be the one it boots from. Okay. And you can actually save it to sending an FTP across to your PC on there by doing a :FTP, and it routes it across to there. It sends it out the FTP line. When we do that, it then checks to see what's the destination file name, and it gives us the spelled out name of what we just chose. You're just going to hit enter on that because it's going to default to that one's what you want, so you'll just hit enter. Notice it did a building configuration, and then it said okay. It has saved it at that point. If we turned it off and restarted this device at this point, it will start up using these new rules we have put in there. Everybody follow on that? All right. To encrypt those passwords, I forgot it, that's the other part, and they do have you doing this, is to encrypt all of those other passwords. The enable password, you've got to encrypt it separately. That's got to use secret. But to encrypt all the passwords for your lines, you're going to use service password-encryption, which is a global level configuration command. That's not inside the line or anything, that's at config. When you go into config T, you do it right there at that level where it says config up there. That will encrypt all of those. So if we go back to config T, if I do service password encryption, and I really don't think you can abbreviate any of this, which I wish you could. All I need, because that is a long one and then a bunch of characters in there. Now if we come back out again and do a show run again, they should be encrypted. That reminds me, before I go to my conference in North Carolina, which I did get approved on, so that first full week of March I won't be here. The 7th through the 12th or whatever. So y'all are going to miss 3 days in a row right there, because you missed Thursday for me to go to Rome for class, for training, and then you missed the next Tuesday and Thursday for me in North Carolina. But I will be online. So now if I do show run, notice my passwords are encrypted. But notice also they are using a different level of encryption. They got 7s there instead of 5s, so their default is using a different encryption method for them. And notice it's not as complicated of an encryption. All right, y'all all got that part? Banner message. It is MOTD, which is message of the day. What it's used for now and what it was originally used for is two different things. And I actually used it in the original format when I ran the Unix server at Swainsboro Tech. That it was message of the day, I used it for there. When you logged on and connected to that machine, which is what we were doing there, it popped up this message for you, and I would give you a message because we weren't connected out initially onto the internet or anything, and it popped up a little message to you, which is the same thing happens if you logged on to connected to the machines today on it. But it's not used for that anymore, because I would tell you if it was the week before Christmas, I'd have a Merry Christmas there, or if there was some other thing to put information out there, I used it as that, and that's what it was originally designed as. Now it is a security message is what it's usually used for. It's to tell you that when you go and you connect to that router or switch, it pops up the message of the day, and that what's normally done is that people use it to put up a warning to you telling you this is a secured device. If you are not permitted on here, you need to get off, that you're in violation of the law of trespassing, basically a no trespassing sign. Okay, and you can word it however. So that's what they have you actually do in the exercise, is they have you put in one that has the word warning somewhere in whatever message you put up there is what your assignment is. It's just looking for that word warning, so you could actually just do warning. Okay, to do that, you're in config again. And it is banner because there was actually several different ones of these you could do, but message of the day is the only one that's really used on it. So you do banner because you can actually change what it displays to start with, etc. on it. And then you do MOTD, message of the day. And then you're going to use whatever special character you want to use to mark the beginning and end of your message. Number signs is what most of the time they use, and that's what I use. It could be quote marks, it could be whatever. It's just got to be something that marks it the beginning of the end with a special character. Everybody with me on that? So I'm going to use number signs because that's what they taught us back in Unix days to use. So I still use that one, and that's what they usually use, I think, too, for theirs. Yeah, they're using the number sign is often used. But it can be any character as long as it does not occur in the message, because whenever it sees whatever that starting character, and so you can actually use a letter there or whatever too, as long as you don't use that one in there, whenever it sees that one again, it stops. Everybody follow on that? So it's the start and stop for it. Whatever's the first character you got after MOTD is going to be your character for starting the message. So that's not going to show in the message. And whenever it sees that again, it quits. So number sign you don't usually use in messages. So that's a reason for going to that one. So we're going to put keep out or go to jail. And I'll put a number sign, and I guess we probably ought to spell keep out correctly, and then I'll hit enter, and now I've got that there. Okay, I'm going to go back out and save again. So I'll do my copy run start. I've done that. So now I'm going to log off. I'm going to exit. So I'm out of here. And notice what it tells me when I hit the device here. Keep out or go to jail. Does everybody follow on that? That's where the MOTD is going to appear. So somebody hits the switch, which they can do from out there in the world, because y'all can hit switches wherever, as long as you know the IP address for it, that you can hit it, but it's should display you a message warning you on that. Some of them will tell you where the switch is or the router is. Some of them won't, and that depends on how their security thinking is. Some people think you shouldn't identify anything about where that switch or router is located. Others are, which tends to be more the older school on it, identify where it is so you'll know where it is you're hitting. But then some are saying, well, wait a minute, that makes it mean that he'll decide this is one I really want to attack because I know who it belongs to. There's the other opinion of, well, here's a way for us to figure out how we're passing through everything and know what we have just encountered as we're passing through, which is the way it used to be, but it's gotten more secretive on it. So, but it did give us that message, and it only gives you so long to put the password in, but if you hit enter, it comes back to it, it times you out, but just hitting enter takes you back to the spot again, which if I do Dwight, I'm back in there. I don't know. No, I put class, wouldn't it? Because the enable password is Dwight. So you got to remember which password's which password, because notice we've got multiple levels of passwords in here now. If we go back to enable, the big other one is the interfaces. There's probably a few other things, but we got Thursday to still click on this. So let's real quick show you how to put addresses in. Now I'm going to put Dwight. So if I do config T, And then we'll talk more on Thursday again on it. But just if you want to go ahead and do the exercise, you'll know what you're doing. So for the interfaces, if you want to configure them, what you've got to do, you've got to assign them addresses, and that makes it really a switch as a switch, because the only traffic that will come in on that port is traffic that is for that port number specifically, or go out on that port. Not all traffic will go in and out of it. Y'all follow on that? A hub, all traffic goes in and out of every port. So now you've made it secure, you've made it faster. Because it doesn't have all of that traffic traveling in and out of there, it means the specific traffic belongs there, gets there faster, and you're really running at full speed. And we'll talk a little more about that later. So I would do INT for interface, and then which interface it is. Now, if it starts with the letter E, it's a 10 meg interface. You're not going to really use those now, okay? Because you're not going to really be using 10 meg interfaces anymore. But they were E's for Ethernet. 100 meg interfaces, which is more than likely what you're going to encounter, and that's on these switches. Almost all of the ports are 100 meg ports. It's going to be FA, Fast Ethernet. FA from the first two letters, Fast Ethernet. If it's a gigabit port, and remember we do have two of these on here, and you could have plugged into one of them. Your assignment's going to tell you which port to use, but if you're using one of the gigabit ports, because your machine has got the gigabit card in it, which most of them should have now anyway, which would be the better one to use, that it's going to use a G. Everybody follow on that?
What'd you say the 100 meg was?
100 meg is FA for Fast Ethernet. 10 meg is E for Ethernet. So they started off with Ethernet because they're Ethernet ports, and did E's. Then when we came out the hundreds, they went to FA for Fast Ethernet. And now that the gigabit's out there, it's G. I do not know what 10 gigabit ports are because I haven't used a device that's had a 10 gigabit port on it yet. But it's going to have something different to it than that. And I'm not sure what they went to their name on that. So I'm going to do FA. Should be 0/1, I believe. Check that. Yeah. They're going to start with 0/ on them, and then the actual port number on it. Now on the Ethernet ones, they did not have subporting to them, so they just had this plain number after them. So you're going to use 0/1, 0/2, 0/3. That second number actually is giving you the port number on it. Okay? And if you're not sure what they are, guess what? You go back to a show run, and it told us, and we probably still got the show run sitting up there. Yep. Notice there that we can see what they all were, that we know what the actual numbers are there. So if you're not sure of how your numbering is supposed to be, there's where to go find what the numbering is. And notice if we look down that list, down at the bottom it had the 2 gigabit ones. Now I want to put in an address on this port. And that's all y'all have to do on this first assignment. You're going to put IP address, and then you're going to put the address. Y'all's happens to be 10.100 if I remember right. Okay? Assuming that's the address they told you to use. Okay? It's got to fit within your network, but y'all don't really know that stuff till we get to chapter 6. So they're just going to give you numbers at this point. So when we get to chapter 6, you're going to learn how all these numbers work together. Then, but you're not done. You've told it the address, but you got to give it the subnet mask also. Usually, in the real world, you're going to see those in shorthand fashion as /8/16/24 or as other numbers in there, but that's going to be on boundaries. It's going to require you put them in long format into the routers and switches, which is going to be, since this one actually is a /24, it's going to be 255.255.255.0. That's binary we're putting out there. It's been converted into decimal. Okay? That's chapter 6. This will make sense to you too. Just go with what they give you right now. Okay? That you're just go with what they've got. We'll explain it all and it'll make sense to you what you've been doing when we get there. But it's 4 sets of numbers just like the IP address. What this tells us is first 3 octets, because these are 255s here, tells us these first 3 octets is their network address. This is zeros, that says this is the actual host number on that network. So each of the machines in here in the room, the first part of the address is the network portion, the last part's the host portion. The host portion will be different on each of these, but the network portion's all the same. This tells us what part of it is which part. We're actually telling the machine which part of it's which. Does everybody follow on that? And it's going to be working with binaries, how we're going to do it later. But you got to put both parts there or it won't take it. And you can't use shorthand. And what did I forget?
You got to say interface address or interface IP address?
I skipped something right there. Should be IP address. Why did I just do that wrong?
That should be right.
Because I'm in interface. What am I doing wrong? Why don't they have that here? Because they're showing you the doing it on the other. Where is it for the angle? They have you do it, and what am I doing wrong? IP doesn't like address there. Okay.
You're assigning a IP address directly to like a switch line. Are you wanting to do like a VLAN line or?
Okay, let's do it that. It should be, I can do it the way I'm doing it, but y'all are going to do it to a VLAN anyway, so let's do that.
It worked with me that way.
It did?
Yeah.
You know, I had something like that happen too, and I exited out and went back in, and then it worked. I thought I must be in the wrong thing, and came back in the exact same spot.
All right, it works on the VLAN, which is what you're going to do. And Kevin says it works on his for him, so something I did, somehow something that didn't take. But to the VLAN, which is what you're going to do anyway, okay? I put in INT VLAN 1, which now put me onto that. I didn't have to exit out of the other because I changed interfaces that automatically exited and put me into the correct one. Everybody follow on that? But we'll do deferred ones. I put in IP, it's the same identical command because I used the up arrow and pulled it back up, and it took. It's there now. Now, the other part is you've got to tell it to start this device now that you have assigned an address to it. It's not started now. It was started with no settings, but once you put settings on it, you've got to tell it to start it. It's now in shutdown mode, and it's not started. It would show with a red dot on it if we went and saw with it connected to another device on there at this point, okay? I will have to do a no shut or no shutdown, which says start. This is where I said, don't tell your English teacher about what I'm telling you. Okay? Notice what it told me it just did. Change the state to up. You want the states in an up mode. Okay? Sitting there in red and it says it's down, you probably forgot to do no shut. And then you would save it and then you'd be done. Now, the other one is as you do your assignment. Remember, it's got the instruction sheet with it. Watch down on the bottom right corner of the instruction sheet where it says your score. Okay? And your object is to either get to 100% if it's doing it in percentages, or if it's doing it as a number/number to get to where both numbers are the same number. So if it starts off at 0/20, your object's to get to 20/20, which I think your first assignment actually is. Okay? When you've got that, you've got it completely done. Now, they may have you doing a few other things of looking at some different things. Do that also, but you have successfully done what you've got to do. If it has things for you to write down, unless I tell you that you need to write them down and submit those to me, all I need is the packet tracer file. Questions on that? Okay? So you just have to submit for me the PKA file. Remember by doing the file save button up there at the top, and remember where you saved it to so that you can attach it in Blackboard. The other one is make sure you are aware of in the instructions that there's 2 key buttons down there. One of them is not going to make any difference to you at this point, but as we get later into the course it will, which is the fast forward time, okay, which will jump time for you. It'll do 30 seconds on a click at a time. The other one says check results. That one's critical to you. If you can't get to 100% and you think you've done everything and you don't know what you've done wrong, click check results and then click the second tab and it will show you everything you had to do and tell you how green checks and red X's. Red X says either you haven't done whatever that was or you've done it incorrectly. Now, it won't tell you that as far as which way it is, and it won't tell you what it is was supposed to have been done, other than it tells you like interface FA01, wrong address. Well, it doesn't tell you if you've not put the address in or if you've just put a wrong address in there. But now you know what you got wrong, so now you can go back, look at the directions again, see what it was supposed to be, go back in, do your show running config, look at it and see what did you have there, and then go back into config T and fix it. If you run into a problem of you just cannot figure out what it is wrong, don't spend more than 30 minutes or so trying to figure it out. If you cannot figure it out at all and you have dug looking, stop at that point and email me and ask me what the problem is. Tell me what you're trying to do and what you've run into. If it's telling you got the wrong address on there, tell me what address you're trying to use and that it's not working. Okay? You may want to go ahead and attach the packet tracer file to the email for me, because sometimes I'm going to be able to answer back to you of what you wrote me on the question, but you need to tell me what you're having a problem with. And if you can't figure it out at all what your problem is, tell me that too, okay? But give me as much information as you can, and then I will look at your packet tracer file and I'll look at your question, and I may be able to answer your question on what you're doing wrong right off the bat without even looking at the other. But I may need to look at your packet tracer file to see what it is you did, and then I can tell you, here's what you've done wrong, here's what you need to fix, and write you back, and then you just fix it in your file and you're okay. Everybody follow on that? So I'm there to assist you on it. That's what your instructor is supposed to be doing. Okay? That's what you're paying us to do. Okay? Any questions on that?
I got a comment on, You were saying that you had instructions, so you were matching that packet tracer. I pulled it up a couple times, and each time I pulled it up, it gave different names.
Is it
for
giving
switches.
different?
Yes.
Okay, then that's where my problem is on that one. So it's not gonna, so I'm showing you in there in the notes how it should be done, okay? But it's giving you some different numbers and stuff on it.
Different IP and different switch names.
And, because the IP and the switch is what I caught, but it was showing for the 2 times I'd pulled it up, it showed me the same passwords on it. But as far as the commands we just went through, I actually show you those commands and those notes there about how to do the interface and how to set the passwords, okay? So you can see it printed there from me too, but just be aware what they want you to do could be different. So I will send another message out later today telling you it depends on which one you pull up when you pull it up of what it generates for you as the rules you have to, and that you got to use what they give you in your instructions. Because when I go to grade it, all I'm going to do is open up your packet tracer file and I'm going to look down and see what that score is. If it's 100 and your name is on the desktop, you'll get 100. On this first assignment, if you forget to put the name on there, I'm going to return it. I'm going to send you back a note through it, back in the assignment that I'm going to put back in there. I'm going to put a grade of 0 on there, but that's not a permanent grade for you at that point. It's just Blackboard requires me to put a grade. So I've got to put a 0 at that point. And if you'll read my notes, it's going to say, name is not on the desktop, fix and resubmit. Now if you do that in future assignments, you're not going to get the fix and resubmit. You're going to get probably a 70 on it. If it was 100 on it when you turned it in, it's going to cost you like 30 points for leaving your name off. Okay? Got this first assignment and possibly even the second, but at some point I'm going to quit giving you a second chance at it. If you've turned it in and it is something that I think you should have, that you didn't really know and that you ought to fix on it, I'll sometimes turn it back and say fix and submit, resubmit also. So if you see a 0 on an assignment, definitely go read my notes. Read my notes anyway on them. But if it's 100, I'm not going to normally have any notes on there, although I could. That I saw something that you should have done better, but it didn't affect your score. Okay? But if it's less than 100, I am going to put a note there telling you what it was you did wrong. And if you see a 0, definitely go look at it, because normally on a 0, hardly ever does somebody get a 0 on the assignment. And normally that's what I've put there as the holding grade for you to then look at my notes and fix it and resubmit it. Everybody follow on that? All right, then I will let y'all go because we're out of time and overtime. But then I told most of you when I registered you for the class we were going to run full time every day. And then Thursday we'll talk about where you can set some of the stuff into the other things, setting it in your PC, the addresses and stuff also. Okay, so there's a few other things still covered in here.
How do you save it from here?
Okay, let's go back to the enable prompt and do the copy run start. Okay,
You mean the
now,
profile?
okay, you mean to take it with you?
No, like to save the settings on the,
Okay, to save the settings into here, into your device, is the copy run start. Now, it's where you want to take this packet tracer you just sat there and did with you, go up there to File, Save, and save it to your thumb drive that you've stuck into the machine there, and that you'll just do a regular file save and choose to the thumb drive and call it what you want, and you can take it with you, and that you can use that same file again working at home. Does everybody follow on that now? Did that get the question correct answer now, Kevin?
yes.
Okay. Because there's 2 different saves involved. There's the save to the device, and actually if you didn't save it to the device but you saved the file and you hadn't closed out the device, that when you come back to it, stuff's still there, where in the real world you don't really get that advantage. Okay? Because it's still sitting there in packet tracer of where it was. So do make sure you do your save of packet tracer besides the save in the device. Save in the devices with copy run start. And that's both on switches and routers. Everything we did today works exactly the same on the router as on the switch, except on this router you're not normally going to be playing VLANs onto the router. Or on the switch you're going to be playing VLANs. And then obviously we saw where that occasionally an oddity pops up on us too. All right, y'all free to go. Unless you've got questions. So notice when I go to close packet tracer, it does ask me if I want to save it and that I can successfully do my save.
They ask you even if you've already saved it.
Yeah, it's not always intelligent on that.
Yeah.
But I'd make sure at that point I had saved it. You want to save your work? No, and it closes.
If we've done like the chapter 1 test and we go to our grade, should it already be underneath there or?
On Cisco, it will be showing, but it's not going to show in Blackboard until I manually move it across from Blackboard to Blackboard, which that's going to come after I get grading done, because that's a low priority because y'all can see your grade. Grade, they're sitting in two different places because once I grade your assignment, it's going to be sitting in Blackboard, and at some point I will cross them back and forth, but that's a low priority. I keep that as a lower priority because grading stuff for y'all and getting notes out there for how to do assignments and everything else is top priorities, and answering all y'all's emails. So somewhere in the next week or two, it will appear over in Blackboard, but I got to sit there and open both of them.
Yeah, I just want to make sure it
look
wasn't
at it
something I
and
was supposed
copy
to
it to the.
submit to you or something.
No,
You just do it.
I just
and we'll
gotta,
see it.
I've got to go out there at some point and copy them across.